This is how I crush the ore. I bring the ore from the mine in a wheelbarrow. The mine's just over there. And then I feed it through this homemade hammer mill. It crushes it down fine. When this bucket's full, I put it in a 20-litre drum, then I start again. When I've got a 20-litre drum full, I take it to my amalgam barrel that I made. This is the inside of the hammer mill. There's 4 swing hammers that work like that. As it goes around, centrifugal force throws them out. I made the hammers out of old drill steels. They wear quite well. When it wears down below the limit that it'll crush the ore, I can undo these bolts. And pack this angle iron up with washers. I can get about another half a tonne off it. I get about 1.5 tonnes off each hammer, each set of hammers. There's the screen at the bottom. It's a plate with about 800 holes drilled in it. Took me all weekend to drill. They're about 2 millimetres, 3/30 seconds. Only the fines can go through there. This is my barrel that I made. I got enough cut of the pipeline that goes to Kalgoorlie. I've made it 1 metre long. It's 720, that's over 3 feet and 2'6" in diameter. I made a couple of end caps. I put some stub axles off an old motor car. I put them on the ends, mounted it on this frame, cut a hatch in the top. I've got a small hatch in the bottom. There's 4 2-inch bars. That's 2-inch or 50mm bars. I've got it driven by a 1-horse de Villiers motor. Now it's all geared down to drive. This turns at 30 turns a minute. And the bars roll around on the bottom, and all the ore eventually gets underneath it and gets fine ground. It's like flour when it comes out. I put about 8 buckets of sands out of the hammer mill in there. I put about 10 or 12 buckets of water in there. I put half tin about there of builder's lime, put that in there. That's to neutralise any sulphides in the ore so it doesn't sicken the mercury. I put the lid on, I clamp it down, and then I get it going. I let it start turning. Now I leave it going for about 4 hours. That really fine grinds everything and it polishes the gold. It liberates more gold, it polishes the gold and makes it more amalgamable. After the 4 hours, I stop it, put a few more buckets of water in there to make it real sloppy. Then I put about 1 kilogram of mercury in there, which is a lot more than I really need. Put the lid on and then I get it going for about another half an hour. Now the mercury picks up all the gold. Then I stop it and I open the top, and there's a patch down the bottom there. I open that up, let it drain into this hopper, and that runs out through a sluice box. Now when I've cleaned it all out, I've got to roll it round and hose it out down into here. All that goes down through the sluice box and out to a pond out the back. The sluice box catches the mercury. I've never lost any mercury yet. Then I lift the riffles out of the sluice box and I wash all the tailings plus the mercury down into a bucket. Then I pan it off a couple of times and I get my mercury back. Then I put it in a calico cloth and I squeeze it and I'm left with a ball of amalgam. Then I retort the amalgam. I've got a retort that I made out of plumbing fittings. I retort the amalgam. I get the mercury back in a pan, and I'm left with a sponge of gold. And that's how I treat my oil. This is my sluice box. It runs down here, and I've put the old pan at the bottom here so that if any mercury gets away, it'll catch in the pan, and all the sands fill up in here, which I can shovel out and get rid of later. These are just clipped in. I can lift this out and wash the mercury down into a bucket. Plus there's a bit of tailings. With this, I'm doing about over 300 kilos at a time. I've got to batch grind it because there's no water here. It's bone dry. I've got to cut water in from underground tanks about 8 or 10 k's away. I bring in 3 drums at a time and do a batch. Go and get another load of water, do another batch. It's slow, but I'm getting more. I reckon I'm getting a better recovery now than what I was when I was using the state battery, which is now closed. There's some of the ore. All the ironstone in there. It's a gossan, an iron hat on top of a deposit. That's the quartz. That's quartz and ironstone. That black stuff is manganese. This is the ore once it's been through the hammer mill. This is a 30 mesh screen. That's 900 holes to the square inch. Well, there's not much left that's That's how fine it gets it down through the hammer mill. With a little bit of extra grinding in the barrel, it'll really be like flour. Now the ore's been grinding for about 4 hours. That's my mercury up to there. I'm going to tip it in. I've added a few more buckets of water to make it real sloppy. I'll close the lid, get the engine going, get it going again and let it go for about 3/4 of an hour. This is the barrel draining. The mercury should lodge in the riffles. When this is finished, I'll lift the bars out and then I'll hose the inside out, and all the mercury should be in the sluice box. That's me mercury. I've panned the tailings out of the sluice box off a few times and got me mercury back. Now I'm going to clean it up and squeeze the amalgam out of it. I'm going to put it in this pan. It's a plastic pan. Now, I've got a magnet I wrap it up in a piece of old calico, and then I drag it through the mercury. This picks up the iron filings off the hammer mill. Then what I do is I take the magnet out of the rag and wash the filings into an old pan, into a pan full of water. Just make sure I've got it all. Throw that away. Just make sure all the old iron filings are out of it. Then I tip the mercury into this pan. Now, I've got a bit of calico there. Just wet it. So what I do is put the mercury in there like that. And when you gather up the calico, and then you start tightening it. And squeezing all the mercury through the calico. Could be because it's a new piece of calico. There's me ball of amalgam. Not bad considering it was only just all the rubbish that I cleaned up around the mine. I only done about 4.5 20 litre buckets of dirt, so I got a fair haul of gold out of it. There's the ball of amalgam. Now I'm going to weigh the amalgam. I'll put 2 pieces of paper exactly the same size in the pans, so when I put the amalgam in that pan, the mercury won't go into the brass. Put that there. Try 20 grams first. A little bit under. So we'll try 500 milligrams. Spot on. 20.5 grams of amalgam. This is the retort I made out of plumbing fittings. That's a 2-inch pipe cap. That's a 2-inch nipple. That's a 2-inch to 3/4 reducer. Then a reducer again from 3/4 to 1/2 inch. That I bent up out of conduit. That's 16mm or 5/8 conduit. There's 32mm conduit or 1.25 inch, and I've welded that onto there so it's just a sleeve. Water comes in here, goes up there and out again. You put the mercury in there, the amalgam in there, and tighten it up. Then you light a fire on top of it. And the heat of the fire vaporises the mercury, travels up here, the cold water here condenses it, and it drops out there as drops of mercury into a pan of water. Now, I put all these plumbing fittings in my forge that I use to sharpen me picks and me jackhammer bits. I've burnt all the galvanising off it, because galvanising, the mercury will go into the galvanising and the gold will go into the galvanising as well. So I've burnt it all off so that doesn't happen. Fire on top of the retort. When it starts vaporising, it'll go down in, the mercury will come down in the black pan here. All the little prills of mercury coming out. Just letting it cool down now. I'll open it up tomorrow, I think. That's the gold after retorting the amalgam off. There's 8 grams there. At the price of gold today, that's about 300 bucks, 320 bucks. Not a fortune, but it's not bad for 180 kilograms of ore that I processed. That's just over 5.5 ounces of gold. I processed just over 2 tons of ore to get that. Not a bad haul. Why it looks so black and dirty looking, the gold, I've been wrapping it up in newspaper when I put it into the retort, and that's all the ash on it. I cleaned it off as best I could, but I don't want to brush it too much. I'll start brushing gold back into the water. When I'm treating a fair sized parcel of ore, I only pan the tailings off out of the bucket about every 4 or 5 barrel loads. When the barrel's fine grinding the ore, I can go away and do something else, like do a bit of mining or something. And then when it's fine ground and it's time to add the mercury, I just take the bucket with the tailings and the mercury in it and add that. I just keep doing that and recirculating it, and then about every 4 or 5 barrelfuls I pan the tailings off and get me mercury and squeeze it and retort it and get me gold. The whole secret to working these small narrow veins, rich veins of gold, is to keep the ore and the waste rock separate. If you blast alongside the leader and then dig that out and throw it on the mullock heap, then put some bags down and strip the ore down onto the bags, then take the ore up and put it in the ore paddock. That's the way to do it. Don't mix high grade and low grade ore. Only take the high grade ore. The low grade will only just bring the average down. Anyway, that's the way I treat me ore.